Hello, everyone. Pastor Zach at Faith Connection here. And this season of Advent, I want to invite us into something new. That in the middle of the week, we're going to put out these little videos that just recenter us on the theme of the week of Advent to kind of get us through the week and re-encourage us to participate in this season. Advent is all about the longing and the waiting of Christ's return as we reflect on how Christ has come into this world. And we at Faith Connection, we started last week in the Gospel according to Matthew because that's where we're going to be for the next couple months, but also because Matthew starts off with a lot of the Advent Christmas stories we tell. And we started last week with the genealogy, the very first page of the Gospel according to Matthew. And it's a long list of names, but it really encapsulates this idea of waiting, of Advent. And it does that because it holds attention, right? But it also defines for us what that waiting and longing is. We are not optimistic as Christians, right? Dr. Tim Mackie of the Bible Project reminded us that Christians are not optimistic. We don't look at the situation on the ground, look at the numbers, the statistics, and go, we expect things to work out in our favor, to go right. As a matter of fact, we look out at the world and we recognize the brokenness, the hurting, the misery, the pain, the grief, the corruption, the violence, the oppression that we see around us. And we recognize we need rescue and deliverance and transformation that can only come from God. And we've seen God do that rescue, liberation, redemption, salvation before. And so our hope doesn't come in what we see. It comes on from what we know, from who God is and what God has done. And we hope and expect for God to act again because he has promised that. And that's what we see in the genealogy. We start with Abraham. And Abraham is the promise that God is setting the world right. He's restoring humanity. And he's doing it through a family with the promise of it becoming a nation, to be a light to the world. And we see that with David as the king, the anointed one of that kingdom. But we also recognize that David is not perfect. He is still sinful, even if we call him a man after God's own heart. That the way that Matthew highlights him as the father of Solomon, whose mother was the wife of Uriah, the guy that David murdered, right? And not to say what he did to Bathsheba. So we recognize that longing and that brokenness, that promise hasn't fully come yet. And we see that play out in Zerubbabel and the exile. And as you look through that genealogy, there is both a recognition of what God has done and a longing for what God will do again, because it builds within it this tension and this longing for God to fulfill his promises. That there will be a greater than Moses as promised. There will be a greater new David, that God will be with us, that this messianic hope and promise to restore humanity and God's people, right, is at the heart of this genealogy. And the good news, according to Matthew, is that it ends when we long and hope and expect, when we would expect God to act. We see the birth of Jesus, the Messiah. And so hope is built in. And now this season, as we look back and see that tension and that promise of the Messiah, we can look forward to that time when the Messiah returns and all those promises are filled full and creation is renewed and humanity is renewed. And so, again, I know this season can be a time of joy, right? We think of Christmas and lights and celebration and family and gift giving. And then for others of us, it's a little sad and it's a little depressing. And we look at the people we've lost, and there's still the world at large that is full of pain and suffering and violence and oppression and corruption. And so we long, we hold that tension. And that tension this week, we hold with hope. Not because of what we see in this world, not because of what we are experiencing, but because of what God has done before and what God has promised to do again. So my friends, this season, I invite you to reflect on that genealogy and the hope that God has done, has fulfilled and what he will fulfill. Till next time, friends.